Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. To buy or not to buy? Who will like Ghost Recon Wildlands? If you're a big fan of open world shooters, like Just Cause, Far Cry, or GTA, then Wildlands will definitely tickle your pickle. However, if you're looking for cutting-edge graphics, brilliant voice acting, with incredible particle effects and mind-blowing physics, then sadly Wildlands will leave you pretty disappointed. Though, it does sport a 4-player co-op mode, which was where I found myself having a lot of fun laughing at all the nonsensical bullshit that we'd find and experience in the world. Learning curve. I've played games for years. Normally I take my time and go through the tutorials, especially finicky menu tutorials. However, for some reason in this game, I just spawned in, hopped in a car, and drove in the opposite direction of where it was telling me to go. I didn't really find myself regretting that, as it was straightforward to pick up. And with the in-game hints and what have you, if you've played any open world first-person shooter or third-person shooter, you'll find yourself pretty comfortable with how things work in no time. The one big thing that took me a while to get used to was the vehicles. All I can say is brakes, brakes, brakes. You hop in a vehicle and it goes flying out of control the second you turn too sharply. So I'd personally recommend you highly use the brakes anytime you're going to try and turn a corner. Otherwise, you'll find yourself like I was, doing all sorts of crazy things in vehicles that they're just not meant to do. I really enjoyed the fact that this was just a jump in and pick it up as you go along, as opposed to having a huge learning curve. Character customization. I was incredibly impressed with the immediate character customization at the start of the game. I honestly believe this was the best looking, most fun, impressive, badass character I've made in a game, and quite possibly ever. I mean, you've got a modest selection of facial options and styles, to a slew of different garment options and colours. Wildlands has everything from fun ghillie suits to eye patches. Yarr, 'tis great. Control scheme. The controls were very easy to get used to for everything in the game. It was clean and straightforward. While I might have laid the default buttons out a slight bit differently, it works and can be picked up incredibly fast. When it comes to the control scheme, the one thing I was a little let down by was the lack of sensitivity. I'll never understand developers limiting my skill based on what they can handle. If I can 360 jump shot no scope, well, I'm not a dill hole, but if you can 360 jump shot no scope, mad props to you. Leave the sensitivity wide open for an individual's skill level. Personally, if a game's maximum horizontal sensitivity speed is too slow, like Destiny, Battlefield, Halo 5, Overwatch, I pretty much stopped playing the game. Wildlands fell in one of those grey areas where it was just fast enough that I could cope with how slow it was. So if you're like me and you need a faster sensitivity, and I know there'll be some of you out there who want it incredibly fast, faster than I could handle, it's going to leave you a little bit out of sorts, and you won't know until you personally play to know where it's at for your level of skill. The control scheme when it comes to giving commands was also a little bit nasty. It felt like you should be able to move when you bring it up instead of being stopped and stuck stationary. Quite often if I'm in a fight and my team need to regroup, I don't want to be running from bullets while standing still for a second to give my command. I would have much preferred that to be mapped to my right thumbstick so my left thumbstick could keep the character moving and ducking away from the bullets. I really didn't enjoy that aspect of the control scheme at all. Everything else was pretty straightforward. User interface. Wildlands developers, if for nothing else in this game, deserve all the doge in the world. For what they did with the user interface, they took the HUD and then instead of making it a clusterfuck of mush, cough, Titan fail 2 cough, they let you turn off every piece of the HUD and independently of the other pieces. So this means if you get sick of seeing something pop up or you find it starts annoying you, just open the options, go to the HUD settings, and then bam, toggle off whatever's grinding your gears. When it comes to the colors on the user interface, it just worked and felt right. It was simple, clean, and how it should be. The user interface did have something that I noticed, and it really annoyed me just for the laziness of it. It was the minimap icons for vehicles. Cars show as cars, motorbikes show as motorbikes, but anything else, it's a truck. So you can have a tractor, it's a truck. You can have some bulldozer vehicle, it's a truck. Several times I was driving tractors or other special wheeled vehicles, and while I could clearly see a large truck in front of me with a truck symbol on the minimap, I too, according to the game, was in a truck. Sure, not a problem, it's a minor detail, but I'd love to have seen just one more vehicle for special vehicles. Props if they change it, and especially if they make it special ed. Menu design. At first, I was a bit like, holy fuck, this is so noisy. However, as time went by, it just became part of the game. I like the way the upgrade menu worked. The gun menu, however, still felt a little clunky. I blame myself for that, as I didn't really open it too much. In part because it was a beta, and I'd rather spend more time running around the world. If I jumped into the final game right now, though, I'd be more than comfortable to immediately jump into the gun menu, or any other part of the menu and do some tweaking. When it comes to menus, I'm a fancy boy, and complex menus like Battlefield annoy me to no end. I hate clutter. So if you're also a fancy boy, then Wildlands shouldn't put you off at all when it comes to the menus. Graphics. Ghost Recon games were never really my cup of tea. However, the one thing I always remembered about them was the graphics. They were always on point and good. Well, let's just say this time around, if I had a potato in one hand and then some kind of super carved, amazing wedge cross curly fry in the other hand, Wildlands feels more like the potato. Often it feels like what you're looking at is some kind of cross-stitch squares that are super low resolution. While running around the world killing civilians, you can almost but not quite see this cross-stitch in the trees, bushes, shrubs, and so forth. I would like to have seen the graphics definitely be ramped up so I didn't really feel like I was looking through the actual element. I don't like seeing cross-stitching in games. As far as the weather in the game, that really impressed me. If you're a big fan of rain, storms, and like the whole sort of scenic element, the splashing of the individual raindrops on the ground, accompanied by lightning in the background, was really fun to look at. I really enjoyed that element of the graphics. I was actually that unimpressed with the first area graphics, I hopped in a car and drove to the second area to see if they got any better. While the environment may have changed to snowy peaks, the graphics still felt very bland. To compare them to another game, if you've played Far Cry, the original, or Far Cry 3, and remember the tropical, beautiful beaches, or even if you've played something like the original Just Cause, or Just Cause 3, and again remember the beautiful scenery, the graphics in Wildlands feel like either Far Cry 2, in the middle of the desert, or Just Cause 2, just average. Nothing really special. This leaves me hopeful, as if Far Cry 3 and Just Cause 3 can make incredible advancements, I'd have a real strong hope for the next Ghost Recon making incredible advancements too. Gameplay. Stealthy games with lots of ordering about of friendlies. Again, they're not really my cup of tea. I buy the game, it gets played for a little bit, and then sits there uncompleted. I'm a run and gun kind of guy. Wildlands falls somewhere in the middle of the two, which is great. I'd often find myself being sneaky with a couple of sync shots to start the kills, then marking the rest of the enemies with a drone, before I'd finally just run in with noob tubes wreaking havoc everywhere, blowing everything to smithereens. So whether you personally like full stealth, or you just more run and gun, Wildlands has something for everyone. What I liked was if you chose the run and gun style of play, and you messed up, you would be punished with enemy helicopters that were extremely hard to kill, at least at the beginning of the game. When I was playing with a friend on the hardest difficulty, I found myself being too aggressive and often got spotted, resulting in him feeling like we failed being 100% stealthy. Gotta be stealthy, bro. So we'd kill ourselves to restart the mission. This was fun and not fun because we were trying to be stealthy, and if one of you got saw, it was just game over. So depending on who you're playing with, how you play, the game will play out very differently, and I really like the fact it caters to all players. Wildlands isn't a serious shooter by any means. Though you can play it like one if you so desire, I found this more relaxed, chilled approach made the gameplay overall much more fun and relaxing. Throwing a few buds into the mix, buds or buddies or both, it added much more enjoyment to the game playing with the other people. Sync shots were great, and while I liked how they worked in single player, I found with the multiplayer they could have used a little bit more tweaking. Something simple like a change of color so you knew who was lining up what marked target. Then on top of that, a countdown button on the screen. 3, 2, 1, shoot. This would prevent all players from feeling like massive dorks, saying shit like, "Ready, bro? Yeah, I'm ready, bro. Oh yeah, me too, brah." Then someone, like myself, being a massive dill hole, shoots early, trying to kill all marked targets before anyone else can get a shot off, resulting in a failed experience. Resulting in death. Resulting in not being 100% stealthy, bro. So having to kill yourself and restart. If that wasn't the scenario that happened, often what would is somebody would have to personally count down. It's not the end of the world that you've got to have somebody count down 3, 2, 1, but it would just be nice to see it put into an actual on-screen prompt. That way, when you're having a conversation, it doesn't have to be about the game you're playing. You can continue on with whatever conversation you are having. So again, I'd just like to see that a little bit more optimized. Improvements they could make. When it comes to improvements in Wildlands, there are so many they could make. I'm leaving improvements to another video. I just want to go over a couple of the ones that were very frustrating and I imagine a lot of players will come across. One is reloading when you're aimed in or you empty your clip or grenade launcher. Instead of the character standing there practicing some kind of zen stare, have them auto-reload the clip so the player can fire again. There's nothing worse than emptying the clip, the player just standing there with the clip empty, still zoomed in, when you know you want to shoot, the game doesn't know you want to shoot, and then you have to reload when you do try and shoot. They definitely could fix that. The color settings I felt were a little off. Anytime it was night or borderline dark, I felt I had to play entirely in night vision. When it comes to color in the game, being able to change things like the gamma, I find doesn't actually work. Everything should auto-adjust based on you changing the brightness of the game. I like to usually tweak the brightness up a little. In this game, I didn't because I thought turning it up too much just made everything look out of sorts. So I'd definitely like to see the color settings tweaked a little bit. Unless it's meant to be when it's night, it really is play in night vision. Either way, it just felt like you're in night vision when it wasn't quiet dark and you probably didn't need it. So I'd like to see something done with that a little. Vehicle camera angles were a huge one. Again, this ties into something like the sensitivity and taking away players' skill. If I'm driving a vehicle, there's a pretty good chance I'm looking where I want to go, or I'm looking where I wanted to look. Having it so when I need to reverse and then the camera zooms out to some weird 30-degree angle, or whatever it was, it just makes it you consistently trying to counter what's just happened with the camera, and usually when you're reversing it's because you've just missed a turn or you've overshot a turn, and literally you just want to reverse for a second and then immediately look where you're going and keep going. Changing the camera angle on somebody that's just trying to do a quick reverse, it's very frustrating and still is taking a lot of time to get used to. I definitely think there should be some kind of option to disable game control of vehicle cameras. I would like to see where I'm going and aim it based on me. Animals. While I'm making a video specifically about the animals in this game, the few things I want to talk about that people will either get a kick from or also find is, one, the vehicles cannot run over animals. They have zero effect. As you're driving around through the animals, apparently they turn into Casper. So I'd like to see something done with that because it just does not feel right. The other one is animals can't be shot in the head. I have a lot of fun shooting random things in games and figuring out what works and what doesn't. I quite often shoot everything that I play in a game once just to see what happens. In the game, I actually was playing with Outlevel, and he'd said something to me like, "Leave the fucking animals alone." It actually felt like the chickens and some of the other animals you would shoot in the head, then they would sort of glitch forward or glitch jump just a little bit. So I'd definitely like to see something done with the animals. Not that there's a problem with it, but it just doesn't feel right not being able to run them over or shoot them in the head. Things I liked. We've been over a couple of these already, such as the weather, the amazing character customization, the HUD being able to be completely customized. Something, by the way, that I'd like to see become a standard in all games. But the one thing I haven't really discussed was the motorbike riding. There was a very cool animation where you would hop on a motorbike and you'd be hauling ass. Really see your character throw the motorbike around. You could just tell the way they were leaning into it. It felt like the developer that had put that into the game game had grown up around motorbikes or was very enthused by motorbikes. It felt like the actual in-game character loved motorbikes. It was just a really good feeling. So motorbike riding in the game was something I absolutely loved. I also really enjoyed the way helicopters handled. In a lot of games, you hop in a helicopter, squeeze the trigger, and just press forward, and that's kind of the end of it. This game, though, made them a little bit fun to handle, in the fact that you would quite often be pressing forward and eventually it would lose altitude. Then you'd pull back on it as you're about to like slide along the ground and it would come back up. It was a lot of fun to actually play around with a helicopter. The only downside to that is when you're trying to shoot at people in front of you, it was a little bit hard to keep the helicopter at an angle to shoot directly on like a 45-degree angle downwards. It was very fun controlling the helicopters, especially when you had your team hanging off the edge. It felt very Rambo-esque. It felt very cool watching your team basically ignoring all aspects of physics and being stuck on the helicopter without falling. So that was something I thoroughly enjoyed as well. There's obviously other redeeming qualities to Wildlands I haven't yet discovered or discussed, but they were just a few of the keys. Would I buy it? While sitting in a party chatting with people, I was saying how much of a trash game it was. At the same time, I was also saying the longer I played it, the more I enjoyed it. I don't know if the longer I played it, the more I forgot how bad it was, or if it was the longer I played it, the more I enjoyed it because that was the way the game was made. It was meant to be fun, meant to be funny. It wasn't meant to be taken too seriously. Either way, I think it would be a really fun game to actually pick up. Throw it on the hardest difficulty, jump in a party with a few buddies, try and play it all inebriated on your favorite beverage. Don't drink the bong water, kids. And while you're playing through it on the hardest difficulty, trying to all sync your shots up, and you know, if you die, then trying not to restart because one of you thinks it's gotta be done full stealthy, brah. It's fun because you try not to laugh at the incredibly bad but hilarious things that happen. I'd love to pick it up on launch just because I genuinely haven't had this much fun in a multiplayer game for ages. If you asked me, are you going to buy it or aren't you? The answer would be, I will definitely be buying it. Unfortunately, I'm still strapped for cash, so I won't be picking it up on launch day. Sad panda. But I would love to. As far as wanting something new to play and just to have a bit of a laugh and a mess around with, and because not only that, there's nothing else really coming out this year that I've seen that's going to be huge. At least nothing on the Xbox Marketplace. I'm doing a video on that, by the way. I just think this will be a really fun game to play with people. However, don't pick it up expecting it to be, you know, like an A++ game with perfect graphics, perfect physics, and just mind-blowingly awesome story and voice acting and everything else. It's not that kind of game. At least for me, it wasn't that kind of game. If you pick it up not taking it too seriously, just wanting to have a huge open world to go and mess around with, by all means, go for it. I'd love to pick it up on launch. I just had that much fun playing it. And not only that, I had that much fun being in parties with other people playing it. It was just a fun game the longer you played it. That said, if you're not really a fun sort of person, might not be best to pick it up either. So hopefully that helps you guys make your decision as far as whether you will buy or not buy Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. Catch you next time.